Good morning and welcome to Coachella. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors on September 24th, 2024. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes, good morning, President Powell,
Here.
Vice President Estrada.
Here.
Director Bianco.
Here.
Director Aguilar will be absent for today's meeting, and Director Nelson.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Yeah, and so for item 3, we do have the closed session will be pulled in its entirety, so we are not going to have a closed session today,
That's correct.
which should make things
And if
conclude
I-
rapidly.
Mr. President, if I may go, if I can request that we go a little out of order on the action calendar, if we could possibly take item 7D and 7F together. So it's an engineering item and an operations item, so if we could go 7A through C, and then take E, and then come back to D, and then go to F.
Okay,
It's a little confusing, sorry, I know.
that's fine.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I'll just make sure to note that as we go through the items. but-
Yeah, we'll just,
Okay.
so we'll just save D until after E.
Yes, please.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, I saw those two on there. Good. Any other changes before we get started? None. Is there anybody from the public wishing to comment at this time?
Mr. President, I would like to add for the record, you should all have a copy. It was emailed yesterday as well as a hard copy provided to you. Today, we did receive public comment for a non-agendized item, which was distributed to the board, and it will be added to the record from Mr. Anderson.
Right, yep. Half of his comment was non-agenda and half of it was.
Correct. He had two public comments. One is noted for item 4, and the second will be towards item 7G
Right.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say, I had to look it up because it seemed like it was a misstatement. But the cemetery district under the health code actually does cite the water code. It's very interesting. Not sure why it does that. Why can't it have its own rules? Yeah. So, hearing no public comment at this time, besides that letter, we're on to the consent calendar, items 5A through I. How does that look?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the entire consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 4-0. 7A. Good morning. Sabrina, yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Sabrina Neese, Engineering Manager for Domestic Water. The item before you today is to authorize an agreement for the acquisition of real property with Sergio and Monica Duran for the Valley View Water Consolidation Project. The easement is in the amount of $2,000. This is for a portion of a pipeline easement as part of the Valley View project. I'd be happy to expand upon that or answer any questions related to that item.
No. And this is on the open calendar because it's a real estate transaction?
Correct.
Obviously, it's pretty small, but wouldn't be on consent because it has to be done in public session.
Yeah, I'd move approval of the item.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Sabrina.
Sabrina. Might be one of the smallest things we've ever seen on the open. Yeah,
but so meaningful.
but it is meaningful.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's just not a big dollar amount. All right, Armando, go ahead on B.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board, audience, and fellow staff. My name for the record is Armando Rodriguez with the Engineering Department. The purpose of the board item is to request authorization for a professional service contract with Albright Webb Associates in the amount of $502,589. This is to provide final engineering for the Oasis Gardens Mobile Home Park septic to sewer connection project. As you can see, we're trying to connect the Oasis Gardens, the last 77 homes, and also as part of that connection, we're trying to expand lift station 5521 and its capacity so that it can not only serve Oasis Gardens, but also regionally, we have other projects we want to connect, and we need the capacity there. The request is also to for CVW engineering, project management in the amount of 50,000, contingency of 70,000 for a total request today of 622,589. As you might recall, we do have a State Water Resource Control Board grant that will help pay for all these costs. And so I'll stop there to see if there are any questions or have any.
Yeah, that was my
continue.
question. I was going to ask you to remind me the funding source of this, but thank you.
We have $2.8 million of Clean Water State Revolving Fund grant.
Thank you.
And Armando, just so that folks can remember, this is all part of that sewer to septic plan that identified like a few dozen projects, right?
Yeah, this is one of the priority projects, in addition to Avenue 66 trunk sewer and the Valley View, which is the counterpart to Sabrina's water. There's a sewer component as well. And so counting St. Anthony's, which is we're already connected, this will be priority number 4 that we want to be able to connect.
So I think, from what I recall, we've identified about 55 systems that are on septic, mostly in the form of trailer parks. And we've created dozens of projects to consolidate those systems, and we've been waiving that plan to the state. And so as we get more funding, we are able to do more projects.
Absolutely.
Good work.
Hey, Jeff, I'm sorry, I hadn't looked at the map, and this is probably 1,000 feet or so from property that our company owns. Am I okay on this, or?
Yes, because you're not the owner of said property, and because of the distance away, there would not be a conflict for you to
Okay.
participate.
All right, thanks.
Fair enough. Good check. Is there a motion to approve 7B?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Let's see how enthusiastic you are. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0. C. This is task order 3 with Dudek for the 66 trunk sewer. Armando, go ahead.
Once again, this project is very close to the other project, but this is the Avenue 66 trunk sewer. The primary purpose is to provide sewer to the Sunbird Mobile Home Park, which is here on the left. But they also bring down sewer to the Torres Martinez Tribal Center here on Martinez Road here on the right. In addition, installing the trunk sewer from Polk all the way to Harrison and up, along Avenue 66 from Polk to Harrison and up to Eccles Road. And we are about 60% design. Our design is 60% complete. We have looked really closely in regards to what the easements and right-of-way requirements are. And there are some work that we have to do to work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to get the easements and right-of-way required within Alati lands within the Martinez Road area. And then we also have to be able to acquire a property at the west corner of Eccles and Harrison. And so this proposal before you is to help us do that extensive right-of-way. Working with Bureau of Indian Affairs is quite a long process. There's a lot of steps you have to take, and so it's best if we get a consultant to get this done. We did initially have this scope as part of our proposal, but now that we have a 60% design, we have a better defined outline of this site. We were to get a better number in regards to getting this right away. So we were asking the approval of task order 3 for $263,391, and then we have some other cost in regards to CVW project management of $17,000, a contingency of $50,000 for a total request of $391. I'll stop here to see if there's any specific questions, or I'll continue with my presentation.
Go ahead. Yeah. Is that it? That's it, okay.
Well, again, good job. I see here that you say we have over $10 million in Clean Water State Revolving Fund, so I think we were able to do a lot because of these funds, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second.
Good, we have a motion and a second on 7C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Pass 4-0. Thanks, Armando. All right, so we're gonna take D after E. So we'll do E now, which is receive and file the cost of service and rate study for domestic. Good morning.
Good morning. Just want to make sure Michael and Eric are on the line. Perfect. Thank you so much. So with us on the line, we do have Eric from NewGen and then also Michael Colantano, if there are any legal-related questions. My name's Carla Romero. I'm the Director of Finance, and I'm here to present to you the Domestic Cost of Service Study for 2024. Let's see if we can slide. So a brief presentation. The key priority when we were building this domestic cost of service study and reviewing it was to provide you a 4-year financial forecast with rate recommendations through fiscal year 28-29. We did want to make sure that we maintain the affordability of water and the water rates that we have. Wanted to meet our overall operating expenses and reserve requirements in building the reserves, the analysis. Then we also wanted to take a look again at our capital improvement projects and expenses and make sure they were balanced throughout the projected forecast for the rate study. And overall, we wanted to validate the current rates that we have adopted for fiscal year 24-25. And so the study does meet all of those key priorities and objectives. And the way that we did that was we reviewed all of the revenue sources, including non-rate revenues such as property taxes, our overall consumption or sales projections within the domestic fund. We also revisited the current adopted budget for 24-25 and used that as the baseline for our cost escalations within this cost of service study analysis period of 4 years. We also wanted to identify the use of reserves when necessary, and there is a use of reserves within each one of the projected years within this cost of service study. And again, we reviewed all of the capital improvement project funding. Overall, what you're seeing on this slide in the green column there are our current adopted rates for fiscal year 24-25, our current rates. To the left of that are the validated rates within the cost of service study. What is notable here is that all of the current adopted rates are below the validation rates within the cost of service study. And so then you go forward to the right of that are your test year and then your 3 forecast years. You see a rather large 21.6% rate increase. That doesn't mean you have to adopt that rate increase. It simply says that the cost of service study justifies your ability to do so. So during the budget process, as normal, we would go through and we would have a rate recommendation. The study validates a rate recommendation up to 21.6% for the next budget cycle, which is fiscal year 25-26. The rates are, they're not binding. They'll be evaluated, as I said, during the budget process each year. And you see some additional forecasted years there for 27, 28, and 29. Again, the current Prop 218 notice expires July 1st of 2025. And so we would go off of the current Prop 218 notice for any rate recommendations in the next budget cycle. This particular slide here lets us see what the capital improvement plan funding looks like for the next couple of years. The details of all of the projects are in Appendix A within the cost of service study report towards the latter part of the report. The larger projects there are noted to the right. And the graph to the left has the amount of the capital improvement projects that are the funding for those capital improvement projects. You see a couple of green lines there on the left side, or the first couple of years. Those are new loans. Those are either the USDA funded projects or the projected debt issuance that we would have within the domestic fund. On average, you're seeing about $50 million worth of CIP during the course of this cost of service study. We go into the debt summary itself. The top table there, these are tables taken directly from the report. The top table shows our current existing debt within the domestic fund. The top column there is the state water resource control loan for Highway 86. This is the one that we've discussed about potentially paying off. The balance is about $17.4 million. And that is the annual debt service is $841,000. The reason we're, again, exploring to pay it off is because of the constraints it has on future debt issuances and the ability to increase rates at the tune that it would be needed to meet that debt coverage ratio for future debt issuances. The 2022 series, the $35.2 million, that is due to be paid June 1st of 2025. And so that's why we see that lump sum payment there in the current fiscal year 24-25.
What was that for?
The 2022 domestic, it was bridge funding for the USDA loan. And so the USDA loan is the new debt issuance under the second table there, under the future debt for both the North Shore Dalcaller project and then also the reservoir. Within the 22 domestic note, we also had some reimbursements for the Talavera and Sun City projects, other projects that have already been completed for within the domestic fund, and we have already withdrawn all of those funds as of today.
Thank you.
So that future debt, going back to that, the USDA are the first two projects that are noted. The total amount is $24.8 million, and the debt service is what's noted within the table here. And then the other projected debt would be the bond debt issuance that we're anticipating for fiscal year 25-26, and that total debt would be about $24.8 million. So a total potential new debt of $49.6 million, and that would be the debt projected, or the debt payments projected with those new debts being incurred.
That would be assuming that we did all of Talavera, right?
It's not all of Talavera. It's certain phases that we've identified as the priority phases. I believe it's one within Talavera and then two within Sun City. But it's not all of the phases.
Yeah, but that would be saying that we would be doing that in the next 4 years.
Right, correct. Those priority phases. What is not included in here, and it's very important to note, is the Chrome 6 treatment. And so that could be a huge variable. We've discussed it potentially being $510 million debt issuance. It's something we're currently exploring, seeing if we can reduce that amount, seeing if there's any other alternative funding sources or treatment options. And so that is not included within this cost of service study.
You said that the between the North Shore and the reservoir, which I think those are USDA funds,
Yes,
that's 24.8.
$24.8 million.
And then the other is about the same.
24, yes, it just happens to be the same, yes, 24.8 million, so a total of 49.6.
Okay. And those two other projects, the reservoir and the North Shore, those are in construction, right? Those are those?
The North Shore is anticipating to begin construction, if I read correctly
But
in the
those-
GM staff report.
Are those committed projects?
Sabrina can
There-
answer that more clearly. Thank you.
So North Shore, Dale Kyler were bid together. North Shore is constructed. Dale Kyler, we're working through a few items with the contractor. Reservoir 7101 is out to bid with opening bids on Friday of this week.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to get into, further into the question from Director Bianco on the Talavera. Would you say that Talavera is still kind of not fully baked, where we might have a chance to try to create a different project that's not the 24.8 million versus they seem to be kind of committed, right?
So both Sun City and Talavera, just to clarify one item, we have one phase of each that are in the current CIP. Those phases are already defined, but it's not inclusive of the project. We have 3 more phases of Talavera to do, and I believe 13 more of Sun City. So that's a very long-term project.
So the 25 just gets us 1 and 1?
Correct, but it also includes other projects in that list.
There's a booster station and a reservoir within that $24.8 million debt issuance, and it's Sun City Phase 2B and Talavera Phase 1.
Okay,
So the Sun City is for about 15 million, and the Talavera is about 7 million.
yeah. Sounds like a lot, but it's really a small dent that we're making to the bigger
Right.
project. Because it has so many phases.
Yeah, to the multi-phases,
Yeah,
exactly,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah, to put that project in perspective, it's about 63 miles of pipeline replacement. So although the numbers are big, we have quite a bit more to go.
yeah, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So when we start looking at the domestic fund financial forecast based on the analysis completed within the cost of service study, I'll note a couple of things within this slide here. On the left, you see the bar chart, and then you see some lines. One is the green line, and that green line horizontally, and that represents the total revenues under the recommended rates. You see there's still a decline. The reason there's a decline is because you have the debt issuances that are bringing in additional revenue in the beginning years, and then it starts to level off, even with those rate increases. The blue line below that is if we did nothing and we kept the current rates, what the revenue would look like in comparison to the current projected expenses, including the CIP. And what we could note there is that we would not be meeting the debt coverage ratio by fiscal year 27-28 if we do not do any rate increases. And then in addition to that, we would deplete all of our reserves by fiscal year 26-27. So we will need to consider some form of rate increase depending on what happens with the CIP, how we progress, what happens with Chrome 6. There's so many variables at this point. To the right, what you're seeing there are the reserve balances. Over the projected cost of service study, if nothing changes, we would end up using about $32.5 million of reserves within this time frame. And so it's not that we're not utilizing reserves, we're still utilizing them in a prudent fashion year over year and trying to avoid them being greatly over. What you see there to the far right is they are over, but you're incrementally reducing those to be over the reserve target.
So I have a question. When I was looking at this, I'm not quite understanding it. So are you saying that on the right-hand column, we're close to $17 million over the recommended reserve?
Yes.
Okay. So when we're putting this rate study together, why aren't we just trying to hit the reserve target exactly? Why are we trying to go over it?
It's not that we're trying to go over, those are the current amount that we're starting with. If you recall, when we adopted the budget, one of the reasons we proposed rate increases is to have flexibility to pay off the SRF loan, but still also meet the debt coverage ratio for future debt that we want to to issue the 24.8 million. And so you need to collect the revenue now in order to be able to meet that debt coverage ratio and have the ability to pay that future debt when it is issued.
Excuse me.
So we're not trying to keep, I guess the point here to the right is that we're not trying to keep those reserves above the target. We are trying to draw them down incrementally until you get to the bottom there where you're just over $1 million over. Yeah. And that would be a policy decision, of course, from the board as we adopt rates and do our budget projections, that if we wanted to utilize more of the reserves, we could. One of the things to consider, or that we're considering right now, is that we also have to pay off the domestic note within this fiscal year by June 1st of 2025. So that's another $35.2 million. So if we pay off the SRF loan and we pay off the domestic loan note, it's about $54 million, I believe, worth of, $52.8 million total of cash that would be going out the door today. And our current reserves are about 75, so that would leave us below the reserve target at about 21 million. So you could see how there could be some very large fluctuations. The USDA loan that funding may not be here in time before that June 1st, 2025 date because of the construction. It has to be completely finished, both the reservoir and the project, the Dalkyler project. We're not anticipating those two to be completed before the June 1st. And actually, they'd need to be completed by like February or March of 2025 to receive the funding in time. And so that is something that is on top of mind for us. And we're trying to figure out, do we go below the reserve target this fiscal year and then wait for a couple of months to recuperate some of that funding and go back to the reserve target, which we can do, but it's something that would be coming forward to the board. So it is important to have some flexibility within the reserves within this fund because, we noted, there's
do,
large
though.
projects.
I mean,
Yes,
we do have flexibility this year.
Absolutely.
We have $17 million over our, okay.
right.
Is $17 million under 5% of the reserves? I mean, is it?
The reserve target is 43, 47 within the
Oh, I see,
report,
I see.
right?
So not total, 40,
It's 40%.
Right.
I guess I was thinking in terms of cash on hand, right? So if we had 500 million.
Yeah.
And, that's not all
Total.
reserves, right? That's,
No, and
So-
it's
No.
not all, it's not all domestic either. This is
Right.
just domestic.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to preview that, I mean, I'd be fine with temporarily dropping below that in order to bridge that timing
Right.
difference on the funding.
Yeah, we're only anticipating it to be a few months, but just additional pressures or things that we're considering as we're going forward.
Right.
The Highway 86 loan, if we kept the schedule, how far does that schedule go?
I think it has another 25 or so years.
And then, so you're saying you're thinking about paying it off?
Yes,
Where does the money come from?
it would come from the domestic reserves.
From the reserves? But, okay, and so,
And the reason we're thinking of paying it off, if I can go back, if you look at that new debt at the bottom, there, that it increases, right? So by fiscal year 29, you're seeing about 4.2 million. We would have to have our revenues exceeding our expenses by 1.25% of that, so 125% of that. And so we would have to have rate increases that are substantially large in order to have that, and that is a requirement of the SRF loan. And so we'd like to remove that requirement and then potentially pay off that debt.
and then that, so if you were to pay it off, you pay it off in what year?
It would be this fiscal year.
This fiscal year? But you don't have enough reserves, do you?
We would be we would dip below the reserve target if we
Okay, so
did,
you're
right below.
Temporarily, that's what.
Okay, that's what you were talking about.
I mean, in the future, I don't want to get caught like that with some of those loans, covenants. I mean, that's
Yes.
just,
Right.
I know.
I don't know why we did that, but we did, so.
Yeah. just trying to prepare for the future and give us some options there.
Right.
On the final slide, we're asking you to adopt the cost of service study, but we're not asking to issue a new Prop 218 notice based on this cost of service study. We are anticipating that we would need to redo this study in maybe the spring of 2026. And the reason for that is because we would want to include any Chrome 6 treatment that is known at that point in time before we actually issue a Prop 218 and potential new rate increases. And then if we do pay off the state revolving fund, then that could, have an impact on our reserves. And depending on what the debt issuance ends up being for fiscal year 25, 26, that would also impact the debt service and the revenue requirements going forward.
But you've already got, if we adopted this, okay, you've got 35% increase, okay, in the next 4 years. I mean, knowing this board, don't you think that's enough?
It
I mean,
could be,
no
yes.
matter what the thing comes out to be, I mean, knowing this board, don't you think 35% is enough? Do we need to spend the money to redo it again?
Well, your 218 notice is gonna expire.
Right.
Right, but we can adopt this one.
I guess that could be a question for maybe Michael. If we didn't, if we adopted this study, but we didn't issue a Prop 218 now, could we utilize it in a year from now to do a Prop 218? Is that the question?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, unless there's some reason to believe that it's no longer a good reflection of your economic position. If your
Yeah.
finances change, you need to update it, but if they don't, you can use it.
Yeah, the Chrome 6 could significantly change our financial condition. And I imagine it'd be fairly easy for the consultant to update it with that new data point.
Right. Yes. If we utilize the same consultant, it would certainly be easier to update the study in a year from now.
Is there going to be any money if Proposition 4 passes for Chromium 6? Do we know?
talking about that in a little bit.
There's supposed to be, maybe,
I saw that.
maybe.
Right.
Okay, all right, so we're being asked to receive and file this study. Is there a motion to do that, recommended action?
I'll make a motion.
So we can still decide later if we want to go through this whole process again, in the next 6 or 8 months, or use this one.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it would be a smaller process, because it would be an update to a pretty current study.
It still costs a lot of money to do this.
Yeah.
Are you, your question is that we would just use this to set the next 5-year schedule?
Yes,
Because it's already
You
35%.
could, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We could
Okay.
potentially.
But we have
I'm
we have
just-
some time to decide depending on what happens here with
yeah.
Chrome 6 and Proposition 4 and all these things.
Yeah, and it very well likely could be a lot cheaper with a bolt-on than just a Chrome 6 numbers.
Right.
Because this is really fresh information.
It should be a lot cheaper, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably stuck with the same consultant, though, then you can't put it out to bid. So, we have a motion, and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0. Thank you, Carla. All right, now back to D, which is Cotino, and we're gonna take F also, which is Cotino. Who's doing Cotino?
How many houses are in here? Like 2,000,
2,000, yeah.
That's what I read.
right?
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is
2,000.
huge.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Armando Rodriguez with the Engineering Department. The request before you is to seek authorization for the general manager to execute the non-potable water facilities installation agreement. And yes, this is a two-part process. We have the installation agreement, then follow up with the operation agreement that Olivia will present. As you know, this Cotino is a mixed-use development. There's some residential tracts, some 200,000 plus homes, recreation, commercial areas. And the development really wants to use non-potable water within the these areas, both residential, recreation, and commercial. They intend to use all the large common areas within development, and this is not very unsimilar. It's very similar to other golf courses where they use large irrigation areas with the common areas between both. But what it really is the difference here is that the development also is going to irrigate with recycled water for the residential homes, both in the front and backyards. And so we have to pay close attention to this environment because in essence, what we're doing is having a dual plunge system. And within a dual plunge systems, there are two separate pipelines, one associated with irrigation, non-potable water, to irrigate the plant areas both in the front and backyards, but then also a separate set of pipelines for domestic water use, for drinking, bathing, and such, and for pool. So that's where we got to really pay close attention because this requires that CWD, in essence, update our notice of intent to the Regional Water Control Board and also the Title 22 report. And these reports will, in essence, are the engineering building blocks. Is how do you do that? How do you, one, protect for cross-connection control? You know, how you have a program for cross-connection control, but then also deliver the domestic water so that you're able to articulate a safe operation. And so part of this installation agreement, you know, we have worked with a customer, and part of this agreement is for them to help us, or at least for them to reimburse us for this update to the Regional Water Control Board, so the notice of intent and the Title 22. But in addition to them taking on that cost, they will be also providing the funding for the connection from our main line non-potable water, which is now at Frank Sinatra. They have to be reimburse us for the lateral to feed the non-potable water. And then they also are going to borne all the cost of all the on-site system. And so we are stipulating in this agreement that that the customer will be able to design and also construct this dual plunge system. And so they will be able to help us with those design elements so that we can then incorporate it into the Title 22 report. So part of this effort really is to allow us the installation agreement. There is some operational concerns here that Olivia will talk to in regards to how to maintain that cross-connection control. But in essence, for this agreement before you, it is for the customer to pay for all the cost on site for the lateral, but then it also help us with the reimbursement of the NOI and Title 22 report. I'll stop here to see if there's any additional questions that you may have that we might answer.
Armando, what's concerning me is want to know what you think is in this agreement, what happens if we don't have the non-potable water? What happens if in the future? Is there a backup? And are we on the hook to delivering this forever?
Well, good question. You know, part of our approach to expand non-potable water, we're counting on Contino to be able to deliver this so that we can reach 100% recycled water within Warp 10. This is part of our master planning. And so if we're not able to connect with them, then there is other, we'll have to find other customers to take this recycled water. And those customers are actually north of Bob Hope and Dinah Shore, and it's very costly to push this project out to the Cathedral City area, the Weston Hills area, in the multi-million dollars because we would need a pump station and miles of pipelines.
So you're not really answering the
I'm sorry,
question.
I'm sorry.
The question is, what if we don't have enough? Are we, and I think what Anthony's asking is, are they going to establish a priority to this non-potable water that's ahead of other customers? Because if they don't establish a priority ahead of other customers, what water are they going to use? You know, like a golf course, they just go to the well, right?
Yeah, so.
What are they gonna do
Yeah,
if
so
there's not enough?
very similar to other golf courses, there's well sites. I mean, there's a well here so that they have interruptible supply, just in case we don't have,
So they have a backup
They
supply,
have-
which
a
is
backup.
well
They
water.
have a well,
Well.
and they're initially using that well as their non-potable water source until we bring the recycled water to them. But they have a well, and that will be their
So the well
backup
water's
source.
gonna go into the lake, and then the lake's they're gonna irrigate this second domestic system through that. The-
Yeah, until we bring in the recycled
Until we
water.
bring the-
Yeah, and then they'll
But-
be separate.
But you're confusing me when you say until you bring in the recycled water.
Well, we don't have
built the
the
line yet.
off-site pipeline to the property
But
yet.
once we bring in the recycled water.
Right,
If it's the summertime
right,
and there's cuts on the Colorado River,
right,
okay? And there's not enough of 100% of this recycled water,
right.
okay? And there's not enough canal water, will they be using
They'll
their,
be using their well.
Their well?
Yes.
Okay.
their
That's
well.
in the service
And-
agreement.
And that will go, and that will be used for both, that'll be
Well,
used,
we're delivering them domestic water,
Right.
and so,
that would go into the second
It's
pipe.
totally
Right.
separate system.
Yeah,
So-
the separate system.
so
which
they
is why
would
they have
have
to have all these backflow
a
checks.
well that, is, separate from our domestic water system, an on-site well, and they would use that as their, source for the non-potable water system.
Okay.
So to be clear, they're not establishing any kind of priority over other customers of the non-potable system? Because they're
No.
different, I mean, they're very different than
Yeah.
what we're currently doing,
Yeah.
because they're actually serving this water to the homes
Right,
for landscaping, right?
Right.
All right, yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's right, but I think it's good to clarify. So they have this Crystal Lagoon there. I'm guessing this reservoir that they're gonna use for their non-potable system is not the Crystal Lagoon, it's a different body
It's a
of water.
different, yeah, it's a different,
It's that, probably that green-looking thing that's on the map there, right?
right.
And that Crystal Lagoon is domestic water? It's their own well water?
Crystal Lagoon is well water?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Well, and, yeah, and then, I mean, before I forget too, I have one other question, more about domestic rates. All right, so what we do is, with tiered rates, is and this might be for Scott, have a water budget that's based on the amount of landscaping you have. But if they're irrigating their landscaping with this other source of water, it's not gonna be on the domestic bill. It's gonna be sub-billed through Cotino itself.
Through the mutual water company.
Yeah,
So
through
as
their-
I see
through
it,
their
is we're
commu-
making a deal with the
So-
mutual water company, we're gonna sell them
Right.
water, and then they're gonna
So,
resell
so
it to.
however many square feet of landscaping they have, that's not gonna count in their tiered rates.
It'll be their indoor water budget.
They're just gonna get an indoor water budget, which is probably more than enough, because they won't have landscaping and a pool. Well, they might have a pool and spa. So they may have a pool and spa plus their indoor water budget.
Correct,
So
correct.
so the water budget for their domestic tiered rates would be based on that.
Yes. Yeah, and pools, we generally, that's the landscape, the area of the pool is generally considered the landscaped area.
Right. So you'll count
Yeah,
that.
so their domestic water usage should be pretty low
Right,
per unit.
right, yeah.
So this is a good question, though. On the grounds that are the landscaping grounds, and it's non-potable, are there any, is CVWD, are they adhering to the CVWD,
landscape ordinance.
Landscape ordinance, that's the word I was
Yes.
saying code, right?
Yes.
So they're gonna live up to that, and
Yes.
Are there any tiered rates for that underneath the code, or do they just buy in bulk from CBWD and then resell it out to their 3,000 members?
Well, I mean, for the non-potable, there won't be tiered rates.
Right.
There aren't, yeah, or for the well. It would just be for the usage that's domestic and homes and commercial activities.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll have one big meter for non-potable, and then that's what we charge, and then from them, they take care of sub-metering, I guess, the rest of the folks.
There would probably be a meter on the rack well that we would read, and then there would be a non-potable system meter that we would
And then-
bill
yeah.
separately.
And then they're gonna bill their customers somehow. Yeah,
Yeah.
So we don't own,
doesn't matter to us.
we don't own any of the non-potable pipe up to the homes. So if that leaks, it's not ours. But if the domestic leaks, that's ours? Right. Okay.
Yeah, when I first saw this, we haven't done a dual piped neighborhood yet. This is the first one, and I thought, okay, you're gonna need extra staff to cover the backflow checks and all that, so that there's not a cross connection. And I always think, how unlikely it would be to have a cross connection, but the reality is it happens, because people see a pipe and they're like, oh, there's water in that pipe, I'll connect to it. And I remember the story at La Quina Hotel when they did their turf reduction program and took out some sprinklers. Some of the hotel room showers stopped working, because that was the water supply. So you wouldn't think that would ever happen, but it does happen. So the state's requiring us to have these backflow checks on there. And I thought, well, okay, so that's maybe a little less efficient, because we're still gonna have to go and read all these meters for the houses, for the potable water, right? So we're not saving any meter reading by doing this, and then we're adding, right? And then we're adding
2,000 backflow.
these two other people to do all those checks.
Right.
Who
So on a
pays
pro-
for those two people?
So on a project like this, it seems like perfect for AMI,
Well, they
Yeah.
should, well, I agree with that too.
Right, right.
Who pays, how do we pay for those two people? Is that in the west rack? I mean, is that in the
Yeah,
it'd be in the non-potable. So that's covered by the non-potable rate.
Yeah, you're like giving my whole presentation.
Presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, my presentation was on the installation, and to get that.
No, I
over.
know, but it's kind of,
Yeah.
it raises all these new questions because it's never been done.
It'd be mostly in the domestic fund because we are protecting the domestic system by doing these cross-connection inspections.
And honestly, the cross connections probably won't happen initially. It'll happen like 5 or 10 years from now when
20
people
years,
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. What color is the pipe gonna be?
Purple.
It'll be purple, and the domestic is white.
It has to be of a different material.
Yeah, it'll be obvious
Yeah.
until somebody patches it with the wrong color. And
Well, I think, well, whenever you're ready.
yeah. All right. Well, why don't we finish D here with Armando, and then we'll move on to F.
So yes, our request before you is to seek approval to have the general manager execute this non-potable water facilities installation agreement with ECRM Residential Limited Partnership, which stipulates the ability for us to provide non-potable water and have them fund most all cost for that connection, and upgrade our engineering report and notice of intent engineering Title 22 report, so that we can specifically annotate engineering-wise, how do we have this cross-connection control? So that's the request before you.
I don't know, there's so many unanswered questions.
Well, if I may, all of those questions, I think, can be addressed by the service agreement that is the next item on the agenda. So if you wanted to I mean, you can vote on it, you can do whatever you want, but I'm just saying all those concerns, I think, are gonna be addressed by the next presentation on how we're gonna implement.
Do you wanna table it for a few minutes and cover it after we hear the presentation on F? We can do that.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
on E.
Yeah,
or-
that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Why don't we do that? So we're gonna just table this for the moment until we hear the presentation on F. Okay.
Good
Which
morning.
apparently we've already heard most of it. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you. Olivia Bennett, Non-Potable Water Program Manager, presenting on the non-potable water agreement for Cotino Rancho Mirage. There's some similarities to what we've been doing in the past and some differences, and the similarities are that it is a Type A customer because they're located in the West Whitewater River Subbasin area of benefit, and they own 2 wells right now. One is they're using for construction and one that they will be using for irrigation. And we're going to be an indirect connection to this customer, so we will be delivering non-potable water to a reservoir. This is not the same reservoir that they're going to be using for recreation. This is an irrigation reservoir. So we put our non-potable water in that reservoir. They also put their well water in that reservoir. So if we're not able to deliver non-potable water, they'll have their well water as a backup source. And they're required to have a backup source as a non-potable water customer. They're also required to meet at least 80% of their total irrigation demand with non-potable water, just like everyone else. And of course, they have to abide by the rules and regulations for the use of recycled water, including the state and federal, and then CVWD's ordinance for recycled water use. They'll have to designate a recycled water on-site supervisor who's responsible for ensuring that they're following the rules and regulations. And they're going to have to attend a training that we offer every year to our current customer base. Now, the differences are that Cotino, our customer, is a mutual water company. CRM is Cotino Rancho Mirage. And their mutual water company was formed to provide non-potable water internally, and that's covered on the recitals, page 2, item 6. They're going to internally bill each home residence or whoever the customer is, a commercial, for the non-potable water use.
Olivia, what's the benefit to CBWD by doing this way?
So Armando covered part of that, because we need to get rid of this.
We can find a home for the recycled water here, or we could go to another golf course. If we go to another golf course, it's going to be an expansion and additional funds, which could be up to 50 million maybe.
Yeah, but we could require them to do this anyways, right? Couldn't we require them to do this,
Do what?
to have a dual system?
We don't, I mean, we're so
We could-
blessed with all of the golf courses, we don't need to have residential use. We can just connect another golf course.
And
But let me just add that connecting another golf course, we're coming to the end of the roadway. I mean, we're coming down Frank Sinatra, we have Annenberg, Sanglands, and then at the end, Tamarisk. And if we connect all these Frank Sinatra customers in addition to the Varner Road customer we're planning, we are able to meet 100% recycled water. If we don't do this connection, and then we are going to be forced to go up Bob Hope and to the western area, and that is tens of millions of dollars in pipeline and another tens of millions of dollars in a pump station. And so it's for at least for this, it's a lot easier just to partner with Cotino and to be able to find this recycled water home so that we don't have to spend the $40 million that it would take to get Weston connected. And we're able to achieve 100% recycled water with Cotino.
I
Sooner.
get that, but why do we have to do mutual water?
Oh, that's their
No, that's
decision.
theirs.
That's their decision.
Yeah,
That's not
They're
we
our
have
customer.
we have nothing to do with it.
They didn't have to, but that was their decision, how they wanted to be able to distribute and collect funds.
But
So
is
what they
that- is
could
that a-
have
Is that a benefit to us to have them do that, or
Well,
for us to do the?
I
What
think
they-
it
I think
is.
it's better.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
it
better,
is.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
is.
You have one bill.
Because,
Yeah, one
I mean,
bill,
what
yeah.
they could have done is had CVWD, you know, pay for the installation of everything, and then CVWD would have to go back and read all the meters and, you know,
Maintain
and
it all.
maintain, you know, their system that way. This way, they're assuming it themselves, and they'll bill their own customers for, you know, those services, so.
But isn't it gonna be a lot cheaper though, because you won't have tiered rates? for
Oh, yeah,
your-
absolutely. But they would, if they didn't get non-potable or recycled water, they would use their well, so they wouldn't have the tiered rates anyway.
Well, unless
Do
they
any-
unless
do
they
any-
irrigated the landscape.
Yeah,
with
do
the-
any non-potable customers utilize tiered rates?
No.
But we don't have any
We
non-potable
don't have-
customers that are using it in
No,
their.
right
back-
now we have HOAs, and some of the HOAs, like across the street, it would be a condo, and the HOA will irrigate the common area that they maintain in front of the condo or in between the buildings, or at a golf course, it would be right by the lake or right next to the golf course that the HOA maintains. But again, it's going to be on non-potable water and not domestic water. Like across the street, they have swivel Ls that they can switch if we don't have non-potable water available, which switches them to the domestic system. You can see those above ground swivel Ls. We do that here too at the district, or in Palm Desert at the
And then
district.
some of the cities have non-potable and medians and so forth, right?
Indian Wells uses canal water in the medians.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and along the boulevards.
Yeah.
So the HOA, that's the difference between the HOA and the way that we're providing water, and why it's different is because of the dual plumbed at the residences. That's what we're calling dual plumbed at the residence. You know, if you're using dual plumbed, you could go even inside the building and flush toilets with it, but that's not what we're doing here. We're just irrigating front and backyards with it. So there's going to be a domestic meter, an RP device, an above ground RP device, and then that will feed the home, and it will also feed any pools, spas, or water feature, water fountain, whatever, from that domestic line. And then on the other side of the property, there will be a recycled water line that's metered internally. They will bill internally for that water use. That's going to irrigate all of the landscaping in the front and the backyards.
And none of that is our infrastructure.
And we don't want
Yeah,
any part
so
of that.
none of it is ours, so.
I know, but you're still gonna have a water bill probably way cheaper than anybody else, because there's no tiers.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's one of the benefits of using non-potable water.
No, it will have, the domestic will still have tiers, they just won't have, an,
But it'll be a tiered for an indoor budget,
Indoor
which is
budget,
gonna
yeah.
be very
Indoor
low,
plus swimming pool.
yeah.
which will be a lot
But
lower.
they'll still have a budget, and if they go above that budget, then they'll hit the tiers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the structure stays the same.
If they shower a lot, maybe.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be
Pool
like.
parties.
Pool parties.
You'd have the water
It
polo
depends-
team over.
It depends if there's 20 water polo players.
How
So,
much water are we,
That was my question.
estimating that, to deliver?
engineering has estimated 800 acre feet.
So it's like a golf
year.
Yeah,
course.
it's a golf course, okay.
I was worried it would be a much smaller number, and it's like, why are we doing all of this for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so 800 it's a pretty standard amount for a project.
Yeah, so the upfront impacts, like Armando mentioned, were the Title 22's engineers report that needs to be updated to include a dual plumbed use. We didn't include that previously. We just had golf course, landscape, and agricultural use. So we'll have to add the dual plumbed. And then we have to file a notice of intent for that use under the statewide board order for recycled water. And we'll have to update our ordinance, our recycled water ordinance, and we'll have to update our recycled water permit to include that dual plumbed use.
So from the way we deliver water to a golf course, which is, I imagine, to a reservoir, and the way we deliver,
It's the same.
it's gonna be the
About the
same.
same.
Yeah, and we'll have 1 meter
1 meter,
at
so.
Frank Sinatra that
So
we will bill them on.
Yeah, okay, good. But the biggest difference here is that now because of this situation, we have to install a bunch of backflows
Yes,
at each of the residences,
yep.
and that's really the big difference.
Now explain the backflow. I mean, what's different there? It's a
So-
closed system, so what's the backflow gonna prevent?
If they should happen to make a connection within the property line, it doesn't flow
Yeah.
back into our domestic water
after
main
the
line.
backflow.
So
And if you have recycled water, the best protection is an air gap. The second best
Yeah.
is an RP.
Yeah, I get it, all right. I
when
mean,
they're-
so they may have one line for their pool and another line for their tree, or their lawn, or whatever they have, and they decide to cross-connect those, so that you get the non-potable water mixing with the domestic
Yeah,
water.
so
Inside-
that's
Inside
sort
the
of,
property.
Inside the property.
that's the ongoing impact that we have, is
Yeah.
making sure that we prevent cross-connection prevention. And because it's a new program, CVWD, we talked to other utilities that are providing dual plumbed. One was up Placerville City.
Is there some way to-
El Dorado Irrigation, and then
Yeah.
Ukaipa. And then we visited Ukaipa, and they've sent their information to us, and we've asked them, you know, what are the things that you would
Yeah.
do differently, and what are the things that you wish you would never have done? And so
Right.
we took that information, and that's what we're enforcing in our ordinance. And all of that is on page 5 through 7, all these little bullet points here that we incorporated what they were saying that they wish that they had done. And part of it is, they wish they had done, installed an RP. They wish they had made sure that they did plan checks submittal initially, and every single change that they want to make, their open trench plan check.
Every time they do.
And then they wish they would have been able to do annual investigations, and so we're going to do that. They wish that they had one party that was responsible for all of the maintenance within the development, and we're doing that. And then they wish that they had limited the number of landscape companies that were coming into a development, and we're doing that by only allowing up to 3.
That's interesting.
So all of this, we took into consideration, we included it in this recycled water agreement. And the biggest change are those plan checks. And what we're proposing to the state, we've been working with the Division of Drinking Water. We've given them our proposed procedures for the plan check. Right now, when we have a new customer like a golf course, we have to go there every quarter and do an investigation on making sure that things haven't changed in there. And then every 4 years, we do a cross-connection shutdown test. So what we're proposing to the state is to do an annual investigation when we do our annual backflow testing that's required, so that we'll go to each home annually instead of quarterly and make sure that everything is the same. We're expecting that that will take about 30 minutes to an hour at each site. We're planning to do that within May and October when people are not here. And the Mutual Water Company is to schedule that. They're to notify the customer that it's going to happen, and then they're supposed to coordinate with us for any changes that are made.
Here's a interesting question. If they're already established as a mutual water company, why don't we just put one big domestic meter?
I thought about that.
Well, you know, we did talk about that too.
We
Why
have
not?
one-
Why not?
We have
Yeah.
one big domestic meter. They build, I mean, they do the same thing, but they do it for domestic.
We did talk about
We
that
avoid
too.
all the other stuff
Have a
that we
big,
have to
huge
do.
backflow device at the
Yeah.
corner. I think that the decision was to
And
ensure
then
the.
we avoid the 2,000 backflows, the 2 FTEs, all the
Well, we
changes we have to do.
We still would have to do that.
Yeah,
They would have to do it.
we would have to do that because it's on, they're using recycled water under our permit, so we wanna make sure that
It'd probably be
we're
a
protected.
simpler program though. to
I
implement.
can't remember the specifics
meter
exactly,
readers.
but we did talk to them about making the domestic water system private and us just
Yeah.
providing a meter. I think it had to do with the funding, cause they're part of a CFD. I'm trying to remember exactly, but we did explore that, and they came back and said that it wasn't gonna be feasible.
Yeah, when I first started reading the presentation, I
Yeah.
thought that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think it also helps us to protect the integrity of our domestic water that we're providing to our customers by ensuring that each home is responsible for their own mistakes.
Yeah.
So each domestic meter will have a backflow on it?
Yes.
Wow, that's expensive.
Each domestic
Yeah.
meter.
The backflow fee is $12 a month for that maintenance and replacement and
Oh,
repair.
well, there you go. That's how you pay for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So another idea here, I know this is outside the box, but, you know, I'm just thinking about how do you, the color of the pipe doesn't really prevent you from connecting one to the other.
It's
Has-
meant to be a reminder.
I know. So has anyone thought about different gauge or different size or different shape pipes that won't connect? That
Yeah,
you-
it's supposed to be different materials. So one's supposed to be PVC and one can be the HDPE. We've asked they could put copper in for the domestic line, or they could use PVC.
You know, I mean, if one was square and one was round, you wouldn't be
True.
connecting them because there's
True.
nobody makes the part
You know what?
to
You
do
just,
that.
John, you just go on Amazon and buy the adapter.
I know. Apple's
and
kind of
it's
ruined
there
it for
tomorrow.
everybody.
And it's there tomorrow.
Yeah, no, there's not going to be. Yeah, there will be somebody will make it. Yeah, I know.
But there will be changes made to the system because you're going to have new homeowners come in all the time, and the next one comes in that wants a pool. So
Yeah, or wants different plants, or.
so if they
Oh, I
just
know.
they would just submit the plan change, and we would go out, look at the open trench, and make sure there's still no connection.
Yeah, they want to put in an outdoor kitchen, and it's right next to the garden, and so they plumb their outdoor kitchen with the irrigation line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's right next to the meter
Yeah, it's right there.
in the back.
I know. No, it makes it's a.
We're doing over and above to make
get
sure
it.
that there's no cross
You
connections.
gotta do it.
We went to, we went on a D.R. Horton trip last Thursday with the city. They're building a lot of homes out there in the Inland Empire. And most of the setups they had were, which I thought was interesting. So one place we went to was Harupa Valley. But so I don't know if it's Eastern there. It might be Eastern.
I think it might.
Probably
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
But and then we went to Moreno Valley also. That's Eastern. But most of the setups they had was all these new developments that were going in had one master meter. I don't know if it's because they were being set up as HOAs or possibly, but they had one meter, and then the homes were being sub-metered, but they were being billed through like these other billing companies. And so, you know, it's happening, and so I'm just wondering why it wouldn't work here either. So
Yeah, I mean, we've had issues come forth where like a apartment complex or, you know, condos or something, and they had one meter. I think we have that set up in the district right now, and then it was sub-metered out, and some of the residents were, you know, complaining, and, you know, well, the price of water's too much, or whatever. I remember that coming to the board.
Or the sewer charges.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're never there. Yeah.
These ideas were floated 15 or 20 years ago for the East Valley, I think, when,
Coal Ranch.
Coal Ranch. Yeah.
yeah, for the Coal Ranch, and I think Travertine Point and things like this. Okay, so this will be the first one in the
This will
Coachella Valley.
be our first one with recycled water. The canal water doesn't have the same requirements.
No.
But I thought that
Similar, but not the same.
back then, we were also going to do the fire hydrants. We're going to be recycled water. Are these?
They are not.
They are not.
We are not asking for in our NOI the use of firefighting, recycled water
Because
for
then they'd have to
firefighting use.
pressurize it.
Yeah.
That would be a whole other step they'd have to take.
I mean, there's 43 approved uses in the state of California, and we're only going to ask for landscape, golf course, agricultural, and now dual plumbed, not the others. Snowmaking.
I
fountain.
really do like that there's like a point of contact that this is you know, identified, and that, because, you know, I could just see homeowners associations, I mean, they get, you know, there's waves of interest and then waves of non-interest, right?
And the
So-
board
Yeah.
changes every 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
or never changes because they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that this morning at our HOA. So.
I think you've put a lot of thought into this, and
Yeah.
I'm impressed. You know, you've done your research with others that have already been down the path,
Yeah.
and what
And it's-
mistakes you can learn from them. You know.
And such an innovative way to use non-potable and make things sustainable.
But I do want to make you aware, and I did call it out, it will be at least 2 additional FTEs.
I know.
Okay.
I know. So now they have this $12 backflow charge. Does-
Everybody does. Anybody that has a backflow is
Yeah,
$12
but does
a
that
month.
cover those 2 FTEs? Why wouldn't that cover them?
No, it would cover probably just the backflow tester, but you need a cross-connection specialist.
How can we make that up?
Can we put a surcharge on that backflow?
Yeah, to cover those two? I
It's
mean,
gonna be about 430,000 a month if you've got 3,000 members at the mutual water company.
2,000.
Well, they go up to 3,000, so.
They
how-
said between 2 and 3,000. In their request for a mutual water company, they said 3,000, and then in our meetings, they've said above 2,000, so.
Okay, so let's call it 2.
And it's
2
not-
times 12 times 12
It'll be
is-
residential and commercial.
but we should
$288,000.
figure out a way how to cover those 2 people.
But that's got to cover more than just one person because you have the cost of the device too, right? And when it needs to be repaired.
They'll pay for the installation, initial
Of the
installation.
initial one, yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody who has a backflow
Yeah,
device.
That's pretty good
pays
revenue.
that.
Just for that, I mean, that'll cover a chunk of it. Probably cover part of the second person.
But I was just gonna mention, if you look at, as Olivia said, pages 6 and 7, there's 19 requirements imposed on the mutual water company, a lot of which include personnel-intensive activities and hiring. So, I mean, they are taking on
A pretty big
a
responsibility.
lion's share of the cost of not just installing, but operating.
Oh, yeah, we don't want any part of that. I mean, that's their own story happening there.
Right.
We maintain up to the meter, and then they're everything after the meter at Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, but that's no different than a golf course.
No,
Right,
right.
so, I mean, but I think we should look into covering those 2 people. I mean, that's gonna cost us, a couple $100,000 a year.
So
Just for
they-
this.
Yeah, you got one of them covered with the backflow charge, and the other one, we have that, problem.
I don't know if you have it covered on the backflow charge. That's just a standard rate that everybody pays. Right? That's not anything different. That $12 is what everyone pays. So that's a standard thing.
Yeah, but who has,
But we're adding more revenue.
that's a line item on the bill? The backflow
Yeah, it
charge?
is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a line item. This is a good example we were speaking of earlier, right? There are changes that happen in our operations, either on the expense side or the revenue side, and so the cost of service study would need to be updated to be, when it's updated, be inclusive of this additional FTEs. And then the revenue or the rate adjustments would reflect that going forward. They may have a rate increase overall, or we may not. It just depends on where we are within the development and the projections at that
Yeah,
point
or
in time.
have a special charge for this type of a.
For this
of a
development or this
situation.
situation, correct.
But
Because we
everybody
don't
would
have
have a
that
rate
anywhere else.
increase, right? Everybody would have a rate increase.
Depends how the rate study is
Yeah,
completed.
I mean,
I
I
know,
think
but
it should
I don't
be,
wanna,
Right.
I don't wanna
it should be project
increase
specific.
other people's rates because we're doing this
Yeah,
project.
so-
So
Right.
that's why we're doing this agreement,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we need to take care of it with this agreement right now.
Yeah, so here's a thought. The city has 9,000, however many backflows it has, and we don't have a specialist on staff, so it gets contracted out. And so I'm just wondering if you could, since you're doing the agreement and kind of setting responsibilities, like they need to have one guy that takes care of all the recycled water. If you could put it in the agreement that they're on the hook for certifying those backflows or taking care of those backflows.
They won't let us, yeah.
Well, the district, it's part of our core responsibilities to ensure the integrity of the domestic main line, and we've not had anything contracted out. Of course, we could contract out, I think Indio contracts out, and Mission Springs
Yeah,
contracts out.
Coachella contracts out.
But the district has made the stance that we're not
Yeah,
going to
but
contract
maybe you need
out.
to change it for this.
Or maybe you just have a charge that covers our
You
costs.
just have a
Or
charge.
you have a charge that covers it, put
Yeah.
a surcharge on it or something.
Yeah.
Is that something we can do later, or is that something we should add into the deal right now?
Well, the backflow charge shows up on our, as part of our ordinance, along with what we charge for meters, service lines. I don't know if it's part of our miscellaneous fees and charges, but, you know, we look at that regularly, like, when, for development services, you know, we assess, are we charging the right amount for plan check? And so I think maybe this could be part of a larger update to all of our different rates, because we do look at that kind of on a annual, biannual basis. And I don't know, I know that we need two additional personnel because of this development, but they may also be, you know, working on other aspects of the district. So they're not gonna be just dedicated to this project. So maybe we need to look at, you know, I don't know how long the $12 rate's been in effect, but maybe it's been in effect for 10 years. Maybe that $12 rate isn't even covering the current backflow personnel for all the other backflows within the district. So it seems like we need to take a global look and make sure that that $12 a month is covering all of our backflow
But
services.
if you're telling me this project needs 2 more people, okay? I don't wanna put 1 more penny on anybody else because of this project. And so, I understand what you're saying, but there should be something in this agreement that covers that. I mean, I understand what you're saying too, Carrie, but I don't want anybody to pay an extra penny because of this project.
Well, I don't,
mean, it just-
well, I think we could come back, we can look at it, we could look at it as a separate item, and we could amend the permit, or we could amend their agreement. But I really, I'm sorry, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say, to your point, we just finished doing that cost of service study, and so you can see how you need to make sure that this development pays for their burden, but not more than their burden. And I think that's the point, is we can update those one-time fees as part of a fee schedule and make sure that it's being covered directly for this development and nothing more, nothing less, and that somebody else isn't paying more because of this development. That's why we need to do it back at the fee schedule, not part of this agreement.
Well, are you really saying, so are you saying that
But what,
we would set up a backflow charge just for Catino? That's part of our
We need,
study?
if that's what you want us to look at, we could look at that. But we don't know, I mean, you calculated 288,000?
2,000 times 12 times 12.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Well, maybe
We-
we don't
we-
have to do that.
Right.
Maybe we
I
don't.
mean, that's a pretty good amount of
that's a
revenue.
pretty good amount, so
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
we need to look at
It is.
within
Once they
our,
get 2,000, they won't have that initial.
Yeah.
within our ordinance, you know, what the salary would be for these two people. But I think that it's separate from these agreements. We really need to, if you're okay with the concept of the installation part, which is, you know, the offsite, and then the way that we've set this up with the mutual water company, it would be really helpful if we could get that approved today so that the development can, these agreements are keeping them from getting meters, and they need meters for their model homes. We will commit to looking at the costs, and obviously that could be part of the budgeting process when we propose the 2 new FTEs. And that would be part of, if any recommendations that we come with the rate. And then it would have to be passed through the ordinance. And I've seen it, a long time ago, we had specific areas of the district where certain fees were charged because they had a higher burden of a cost.
Right, so as long as the agreement that we're talking about today allows us to do that,
Absolutely.
I'm okay with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't wanna hold the project up, but if you're telling me we can go through and find out if it does cost us more money there, that we can add on a fee to the, you know.
It would just be a Cotino fee.
Right.
That's
that's-
correct.
Or you
that's-
could say,
covers that
you could
cost.
cover it like for every bulk, non-potable dual system, the monthly fee for the backflow preventer will be X.
And so that's part of the obligation that we have to come back to you with the budget. If you're gonna propose new FTEs, who's gonna pay for it and is that fair? That's
Right.
our obligation outside of this
Yeah.
agreement.
But we also have to figure out, you know, these two new FTEs, are they 100% Cotino, or are they only 90%
Well, they
Cotino?
won't be initially, it's. they
Right?
won't have
Or are
enough
they
homes
80% Cotino and 20% the rest of the district?
Because you have to think they're not going to get recycled water until December of 2025. Although we'll have plan checks up front, we won't have all of that additional.
So you don't have to do the cross-checking on well water?
No, it's not required, but we will, so we can see the, because they're gonna put the pipes in, we wanna see the open trench installation. So we will
Okay.
have the plan
Yeah,
check.
you need to do that, yeah, I agree, okay,
And the plan check's being covered by the developer,
okay,
those fees.
yeah. So, thank you.
Okay.
We doing all right here? Can we go back to 7D then? This is the non-potable water facility installation agreement. Is this, are we ready to take action on that? Yeah, this is the, I mean, we could take them whatever order you want, but might as well take D before F. Is there a motion to approve D?
I'll make a motion.
7D, yeah.
Is that Director Nelson?
Yes, second.
Yeah, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Pass 4-0. And then 7F, which is the non-potable water agreement for the Cotino CRM. What's the E stand for? Up on D, it says ECRM. What's ECRM? And then here it just says CRM.
Well, their agreement is with the developer and mine is with the mutual water company.
So
Because
the
the developer
developer is
will-
ECRM?
Yeah. What's E stand
What's
for?
the E? I'm just curious.
Or ORH, do you know what the E stands for?
Do we know?
It's,
The E?
It's it's the Canadian Ownership Group, the original owners.
ECRM?
ECRM is the acronym for the Canadian.
There's no, what does the E stand for, do you know?
I don't remember that, I can dig it up for you though.
No, we're- so E, Catena Rancho, whatever.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll get it right.
no worries.
You've had some entertainment this morning.
He's nail biting back there.
No.
Yeah, good. Let's see, it's, yeah, I would move item F, the non-potable water agreement with Cotino. Rancho Mirage Mutual Water Company.
Second.
Yeah, and just, I hope you recognize how much support you're getting from staff on this, because I think they've done a really good job of defining and addressing the issues.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Thank you.
I would have pushed for the domestic meter.
Yeah. So we're motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Like calling it-
Aye.
Aye, pass 4-0. Yeah, thanks. On to G. This is Prop 4, Scott Burrett.
Hey, good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Scott Burrett with the Department of Public Affairs and Customer Experience. The purpose of this item is to request the board to consider a support position for Proposition 4. It's on the ballot as the Safe Drinking Water, Wildlife Prevention, Drought Preparedness and Clean Air Bond Act of 2024. Proposition 4 authorizes a $10 billion.
Wildlife prevention? Is it wildfire?
Let me say, I think
Wildfire?
wildfire, sorry.
Wildfire prevention.
Probably spell check.
Wildlife
Wildfire.
prevention would be even more expensive.
Yeah, right. So Prop 4 authorizes a $10 billion bond to be placed on the November ballot for voter consideration. The largest portion, $3.8 billion, would fund safe drinking water, drought, flood, and water resilience. Of this amount, $1.885 billion would protect and increase California's water supply and water quality. Specifically, and in answer to Director Bianco's question, $610 billion would address water quality issues to provide clean, safe, reliable drinking water, and funding to address Chrome-6 treatment in drinking water. $386 million would be for projects related to groundwater storage, groundwater banking, groundwater recharge, water reuse, and recycling. And 170 million would implement the Salton Sea Management Plan, program 10-year plan to provide air quality, public health, and habitat benefits. While the funds would still need to be appropriated by the legislature, the bond has the potential to provide our ratepayers with benefits such as providing funding for CVWD priorities like Chromium 6 treatment, Eastern Coachella Valley disadvantaged communities projects, expansion of our recycled water programs, Salton Sea environmental issues, and agricultural conservation. And based on these potential benefits to the region and to our ratepayers, we recommend a support position on Proposition 4 and recommend that the board adopt the resolution adopting Prop 4, which does not have wildlife protection.
Wildlife prevention.
Prevention.
So it's obviously
Wildfire.
And the agenda is correct, so wildfire prevention.
Those are my notes. I think something spell checked did something.
Have you heard any specifics on the hexavalent chromium funding? Is it just, they just worded that way, or?
So, I mean, that's in SB 867, which was adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor. But there's no specifics, so this money would still need to be appropriated by the legislature, so this is just kind of, this would be the funding. That's why I say it's potential funding.
But at minimum, the language does say hexavalent chromium?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. So I think the word
Yeah.
matters.
Among other things.
Yeah.
And how much money is in that pot?
And $610 million, but that's, you know, for a range
For
of
a range
projects,
of
so
things.
it's not gonna be, you know, it's up to the legislature, but it's.
But at least it qualifies, which I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating thing, I mean, look, in 2016, they passed a bill to limit the giving out of plastic bags at the grocery store. And so everybody went with a heavier plastic bag, and now there's more plastic disposal weight in the dumps, right? So it didn't work out so well. So now the legislature is coming up with a new bill that they're passing.
A ban.
Right. And then you look back at Prop 1 that was totally designed for storage of water in California.
$3 billion for surface storage.
$3 billion for surface storage, and not one damn drop of water has been stored because of the $3 billion. And so it's a little frustrating to have now this $10 billion with all these projects that are absolutely necessary across the state. Well, not all of them, but you know, the lion's share. But I mean, how is there any accountability to this, right? We have no more storage, and are we going to get funding for Chrome 6? Unless we're identified in the legislations, it's kind of a crapshoot.
And it could be provided
Just
through
editorial.
You're giving my speech.
It could also be provided via funding, you know, grants through the departments, like State Water Resource Control Board. But it would still have to be appropriated by the legislature, to your point.
I mean, there's so many different projects. Storage obviously is one of them, but you know, I think we've had big success here at the district with other types of projects. So, you know, I think we want to make sure that we get success all across the board. I think that's the best case scenario. That's what we would want. But without this funding, we're probably in a worse position across everything.
You know, the state has made an obligation to mitigate Salton Sea issues, and this has $170 million for Salton Sea Management Program in the 10-year program. So, I mean, couple that with the $250 million that the feds have committed through, you know, the savings of water with the Colorado River. I mean, that's, you know, that's almost $400 million. So we're getting we're getting a fair chunk of funding there to keep moving that forward.
Right, but wouldn't they be able to find those dollars
In the general fund?
in the general fund? And I'll tell you, look, I went through this. I get all the arguments. And just because we're telling people to vote a certain way doesn't mean they're gonna listen to us. Right? I mean, it's already on the ballot.
Right.
I went through the packet and made my decision on how I'm going to vote personally, and I was a no on this because I don't like doing a 40-year bond for things that don't have a 40-year useful life. I think that's bad fiscal policy. I just don't agree with it. There's all kinds of good stuff in here for potentially to help us, but I see what happened with Prop 1 and the $10 billion for that didn't get spent, and no new storage, even though that was what it was supposed to do, and it didn't do it.
Where'd the money
And-
go?
Good question. And now they're trying to fix that by having an accountability where they have to do a report. But that doesn't mean they have to spend the money in the right place. They just do a report telling you where it went. And it's, in my view, this is not the way the government should work. Doing a $10 billion bond. And you have good things in there that some people like, and then you wrap it in a whole bunch of other billions. And you go out for 40 years, bonds are kind of expensive right now with interest rates the way they are. And so you're spending 17 or 18 or 19 billion dollars out of the general fund to do stuff that is a whole bunch of different stuff. I mean, if they put something on there that says $180 million for the Salton Sea, I'd say that's a great idea. Let's do it. But you along with it, all the baggage of all the other $9 billion that's going to go who knows where. I have a problem with it. And I mean, if they were building things that had a 40-year useful life that were necessary, that would make sense for a 40-year bond.
Are you talking about everything else, everything that's other than water? Like the
Well,
water?
there's all kinds of stuff in here. Yeah, and you got the list.
Yeah, I'm just because
Yeah.
I would think that the water category, it probably does have.
I mean,
a
what is
40-year
this climate smart,
Yeah, I
resilient
just-
farms?
I just-
I have a farm. I'm not going to get any of that money. I guarantee it. I mean, it's not that that's why I'm a no, but it's just where's the money go?
They're not calling this a water bond, right? 'Cause
No.
it has all these other things in it.
Right.
It's a climate bond.
Climate
It's
bond.
a climate bond.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they
it's
do
a
some
climate-
water in it.
Yeah.
The
I don't know.
reason, I mean, just from the staff perspective, the reason I brought this as, a support position as opposed to just for board consideration is because there could be a lot of benefits, and the Chromium 6, there's no guarantee that we're going to get money because it has to be appropriated, and,
Right.
we would probably have to compete for those funds. But those projects would have a long lifespan for our ratepayers. And Chromium 6 is going to be an issue. We know it's going to impact our rates, and to the extent that this bond could minimize that, that's why I brought this as a support position.
Yeah, I understand.
We can table this. We don't have to vote either way.
So
Either
that,
we
would
could or
that
want to.
fall under the safe drinking water, drought, flood, and water resilience?
Yeah, so there's the 3.8,
many
there's
things in there.
3.8 billion,
Yeah.
and of that, 610 million would address, and it's not just Chrome 6, it's other projects, but
Pass this.
610 million would address water quality.
It's gonna pass.
Or-
Anyways.
We're
and,
gonna need all
I
that
think it's so many
610
plants.
million.
right here,
Well,
yeah.
it's not going to live or die based on what we say.
We should just pass it.
Or go ahead and vote.
Yeah, and
It
just to
might
be
fail
clear,
if we vote
the
on it, it
board,
might fail, so.
the board can, consider adopting this resolution in this board meeting, but that doesn't authorize Scott to go out and start campaigning on his behalf. Once you leave this board meeting, he has to give both sides of an issue if he's gonna talk about it or get asked about it. I'm not saying that makes you feel better or worse, I just wanna make it clear what's being asked.
And we have been asked for our position from other water organizations, and, up until now, we've said we haven't had a position.
Right.
So, I mean, is this, I think this might be a pretty close vote. Could we table this until Director Aguilar gets here?
So you could do two things. You could take a motion to table it without a return date, at which point it's gone unless somebody votes to bring it back, or you can table it to another meeting, and that will be brought back at another meeting.
Well, I'll make a motion that we table it to the next meeting.
Director Aguilar will not be present at the next meeting, neither will Director Bianco. Correct?
Correct.
Yep. So we will have Bianco and Aguilar.
What about
present.
the meeting? When's the election? How about run out of
I
meetings?
believe the 24th.
October
The
25th.
day before.
It would be October 22nd. Oh, I'm sure everyone's going to be waiting to hear what we think about this bill.
Correct. October 22nd is the next meeting that
All
I
right,
show.
well, I'll make.
We
a
can do that.
No, well,
Go do it.
You know, we'll take a vote now. I'll make a motion that we, I'll make a motion to approve. To
I'll,
support.
I'll second it.
So if we're 2-2, that means it failed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and just to be clear, I mean, our action on this, if I can say this, would be, we would let other organizations know what our position is. We have a press release prepared, which we can or not send out. If the board doesn't want us to send it out, we won't send it out. We could let the other organizations know that we're a support position, and that's all we do.
I know. I find it a little odd that we're taking a position that's not advancing legislation or crafting legislation. We're really just telling people how to vote. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that.
And this, we actually modeled this after what we've done in the past. There was another bond on the ballot. So we did the same, kind of the
I think
resolution
we're-
process.
I think I'm supportive of it. I do have my own concerns with government and overspending and not being accountable for. I mean, I've had all these issues with, and I'll say it. I've had all these issues with COD. I mean, they've passed so many bonds, and I haven't seen any projects in the Eastern Coachella Valley. And so,
Haven't seen any projects anywhere.
so I have my share of concerns with government and the way projects are scoped out or
Right.
planned for, and then kind of presented to the public, and then nothing comes out of it. But I think that there are things in here that are specific to the things that we're doing here, like the Salton Sea. I like the fact that it says that 40% of the funds are committed to disadvantaged communities. I think we've probably had one of the greatest success in the entire state in accessing a lot of this money. I was looking at the presentation from Carla, and it looked like that grant, that there was a blue portion of that column was, I think most of it was grants. It was a big portion.
You're right. I
And
agree
so
with that.
we do a good job, thanks to staff, on at least doing our best to try to hit as much as we can. And I think we're doing a good job, so, that's the reason I support it.
And, I made the motion, I second your motion, and, I see this as a continued investment in Salton Sea management, which is good for the community. I think we have our work cut out for us on accessing that 610 million, and maybe we can get part of the 1.8 billion in terms of hexavalent chromium reimbursements and so forth. So, those are really the two that kind of help me make that decision to support. But I express my frustrations to
Yeah.
John.
I think we have a good shot. If there's money that becomes available for Chromium 6, I think we have a good shot at getting that money. I think we have a very good relationship with the State Water Board. I think staff does. And I know that they've have at least made the comment of wanting to work with the district or others like the district to figure out how to put that together. So if this allows us to create that opportunity, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would just hate to see the State Water Board have something come up in front of them and, hey, we have this 500 million in hexavalent chromium. Well, did they support Prop 4 or not?
Yeah, no.
Right, so.
Yeah, no,
Well,
All right,
and if this were,
I'll vote yes for you guys. Let's just get this thing going.
if it were, yeah, and if this were in the legislative process and it was up to us to make a difference in terms of advocating for Salton Sea funding and disadvantaged community funding, I'd be all in on
Yeah,
that.
I hear you, John.
You know,
I know.
but it's just the whole package that, I don't know,
That they seem to always do it that way.
They do-
They
they
do it
do.
in Congress. They do it.
No, I know,
They
I
do it
know.
everywhere.
All right, well, why don't we go to a roll call vote so we don't have any confusion here, just in case it's a split vote.
President Powell,
No.
Vice President Estrada,
Yes.
Director Bianco,
Yes.
Director Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that passed 3-1.
Okay, thank you.
He made a good case.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
You did. You guys did a good
I
job.
almost got you. I almost got you.
No.
No.
No, I just can't.
No, I get it. I
I
have.
can't
I have.
ask.
feel the
I can't
exact
ask
same
some-
way, but-
I can't ask somebody to vote some way
I-
when I'm voting the other way.
Yeah, no.
That
I
doesn't
share
make
the
sense.
same concerns you share. Trust me.
All right.
I apologize, I said this earlier, but I meant to just note again that we did have a public comment towards 7G.
Yes.
I did mention that earlier at the
Yes.
start of the meeting. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, we read that. On, we already talked about the written communications. Those included those two. I hope you had a good meeting with Kay Wolf, one of the founders of the city of La Quina. Right? That's who, that was one of the letter writers. Right? So Kay Wolf is one of the founders of the city of La Quinta.
Oh, okay.
I hope
Yeah,
somebody had a good
yeah,
meeting
so
with
we
her.
were, yeah, staff was out at her property before she received her bill. And to let her know that there was high consumption, they had their gardener, landscaper check on the property. They didn't find any issues, and we sent a meter reader back out, and they discovered a hose was running
Oh,
for quite a period of time. And that was the reason for the high consumption, so he turned off the hose, the consumption stopped, and that was it.
I believe that was the second time that.
Yeah, it also happened last summer.
so if you have a flume, that it'll tell you about it, you know. while
We
it's
offered
happening.
we offered them a flume.
It's amazing how well that works, yeah.
We
Okay,
did
good.
offer one.
Appreciate the effort there.
Yeah, I did talk to Kay, and
Did you?
I called her, yeah.
Oh, good.
And since she put my name on the.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right, called me out, so I
She's
had
in
to
my
call her
district,
back.
but she put your name on.
Yeah, so I had to call her back, and I reminded her of that, but in any case, yeah, she said there was some malfunction with the hose bib of some sort, and so I advised her of the process on the leaks and all that, and so she was going to pursue that, which I hope comes to a good conclusion. And but yeah, I gave her a call, John. So
Thank you.
yeah, we had a great conversation.
Sometimes people call me Peter, you know.
And sometimes they call me John.
All right, board general comments, Director Nelson.
Yeah, so, well, Jeff's out, he might have something to say about this, but Sites Reservoir Project was facing some CEQA and environmental impact report challenges, and court ruled in favor of Sites, and then they appealed the decision, so I think it's, one of the NGOs appealed the decision. A judge recently cited on behalf of Sites Reservoir Project on all counts. So as far as CEQA and the EIR, looks good to move forward. There was some, did face a procedural setback with the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the 401, 404 permit, and that they denied that. And it looks like it's just procedural, and maybe you guys could comment on
Right,
that.
and so there's a deadline for the State Board and the Army Corps to consider it, and if the paperwork needs to be resubmitted, then they just start, the plan is to refile. So the headline said, federal permit denied,
Right.
but it was without prejudice based on the time schedule, not based on any fault of the merits of the matter.
So it'll get refiled, and then
Yeah.
it'll start a new clock,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of a time issue there. One of the other things is the the state board is, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife are considering a relaxation of the Fall X2, which is the line where the salt from the sea meets the rivers, the Sacramento and San Joaquin, and it's called X2. And so, if they have some relief there, the salt water can come in a little bit more to the delta, but it allows for some more exports. So, with that, it looks like there might be as much as 300,000 acre-feet of exportable water through, which is good. And even without that, San Luis Reservoir is projected to be full by the end of November, 1st of December in there. So all good news for the 2025 allocation, right? Start with San Luis full. So that's all good. And La Nina looks like it's late, but she'll be on her way. And of course, that kind of the forecast is for, drier weather in the Sierras and the Colorado, but not necessarily so. I think it's about 50-50. So
Didn't we already get snow though?
yeah, we had some snow, but I'm sure it's all melted. So.
But we did.
Yeah,
we did. Which
we
was
did.
Early snow, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Today.
Director Bianco?
No comments.
No comments.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't make the memorial, but Carl Garchinsky was a big part of the Coachella Valley Water District as a meteorologist for a lot of years.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Remember he had an office here, right back there somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's passed away, but he definitely was a contributor to a lot of people's weather knowledge. I just
Nobody
remember,
here probably even remembers.
I just remember.
Right?
Does anyone who knew Carl? Yeah, there
Oh,
you
you
go.
did? Okay,
There you
good.
go.
Okay.
So I just have memories of my dad calling Carl on the phone and go, Carl, do you have a window in your office? Look out the window. It's raining. If he didn't forecast rain.
When he
needed a window office.
And when he would show up to our meetings, when we had our great meetings in here, when he would show up to our meetings, it was, oh my God, it was either going to be one, it was never going to be good. It was either there was a heat wave coming on or rain coming.
Or frost.
Or frost.
Or
Yeah,
frost.
when he showed
Yeah.
up.
Oh my gosh, frost. Yeah. Yeah. I remember him forecasting the 2011 freeze, and it was super cold, and he there a lot of mornings I listened to Carl on the phone, talk to him later in the day.
We would set up irrigations based on him, or we'd
sure.
order helicopters based on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was a wonderful human being. He was a unique individual whose life goal was to hike the tallest mountains in the world, and got all the tallest mountains in the world except for Everest. He made it, I think, it was like 25 feet or 30 feet or 40 feet or something from the top, and had to turn back. And the funny story about that is the Chupa or whoever they had with them said,
The
we
Sherpa.
have, right, we have to because of the weather. And he said, I guarantee it's not going to be bad. And you know what? It wasn't bad. It wasn't. He was right. I just heard that story.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, there's Carl.
Yeah.
Next is any requests for future agenda items? I don't have any. Board meeting reports. First one is September 11th, Colorado River Board
Do you
Director.
mind if I go first?
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
I
you need to leave? Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was at the Conservation Commission meeting. It was fairly quick. We bought about 0.3 acres in the Willow Hole area. We've been concentrating on that area for conservation. Elected the new officers for next year, which pretty much stayed the same, with Gary Gardner of Desert Hot Springs running the show. And then for our Environmental Sustainable Committee, we've been really pushing this dust that we've seen from like, Hillary, after the Hillary, we've seen this dust that comes, and when we get these storms that come in, we get 10 of them a year. That's just part of living here in the desert, or 12 or 8 or whatever it is. But after this Hillary, we've seen this dust come in and last for days, and it's unusual, and so we've really been on AQMD to come out, and we've talked to federal partners to come out, that something has changed here. And so what has happened is there's been some runoff from the mountains that's caused this dust. But the unique thing is they put monitors out, and they told us that the PM10 levels have not gone up. And so everybody's like, what do you mean it hasn't gone out? Well, we find out that they only put them in June. And so, we need to see. But the interesting thing is that the levels of dust that is new is not PM10. It's a larger particle. And they're telling us on a federal level, and we had federal officials there, that this dust is not harmful to us. And that our bodies, the human body, will, what's the word for it?
Process?
Assimilate it? Or
Process, or
process.
not process, but filter it out. And so everybody's a little skeptical on that. And we talked about, not only is your quality of life, and we think that everybody's, breathing rate, everything's changed. This last year, it was different. This desert, I mean, if you lived here your whole life,
It's changed.
it's changed.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see what the monitors show us here after we get through the windy season, which is January through February. But that group is really on it, because things have changed here, and it could really affect our tourism and our health here if we don't get a handle on it.
Thank you. Is that it for you?
That's it.
That's all that's on the list. Okay, I think we can handle it from here.
Thank you.
I believe. Back to the September 11th Colorado River Board.
Yeah, I did not attend that meeting. I had some conflicts.
Oh, okay. And then Salton Sea Authority, Director, Vice President Estrada, both?
Yeah, that's our regular meeting. Typical reports that we hear from the state and the feds, and the big thing that, one of the things that we did is we are gonna enter into a contract with CV Strategies. We're gonna start focusing more on our outreach and messaging. It's something that we've been trying to do for quite some time.
Yeah.
At one point, I think we had a grant from the state to try to do that. I think we might still have it, and so we need to draw down on those monies. And there's just a lot of little things happening at the sea. We have a big project that we're working on with the Army Corps of Engineers that's gonna set us up for hopefully a big pot of money after the study's concluded. And so we're doing all that. We're doing the project at the West Shores, we call it the Finger Lakes. We have the project at North Shore, the pilot North Lake project, and which, by the way, I think the state, did the state reach out to you to set up a meeting, Samantha? I thought they're getting ready to try to meet with us. I think there's some changes in the project that requires our involvement, so they reached out. Okay, good.
Okay.
The North Lake.
Oh, I'm sorry, North Lake, yes, sorry. I was reading something else. Yes, we have that scheduled already.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, and that's with the state. That's with the Natural Resources Agency. So, just a good time for us to start putting our messaging together. There's a lot of stuff happening. So that was it.
Great. Next is that September 12th is DVBA membership luncheon. I was there. We had a presentation from Mark Rogers on travertine. This is the travertine that's right next to the spreading ponds. I forget how many homes, but it's interesting community. No golf course. It's kind of on the slope up there.
Where the old vineyard was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I thought they were selling a lot of that land. So the project's still.
Project's going forward, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like it. interesting project. I'm sure you can find it all online somewhere.
That's the Juan de Lara project, right? The one that he's also.
That's
working on?
not the one, no, that's Travertine Point, I
Oh,
think.
which one's this?
This one is in the city of La Quinta, and it's right next to
Oh.
the spreading ponds.
All right.
So you have to go over the dike and, in where the, vineyard used to be.
In fact, yeah, one of their big holdups was that they wanted to enter the property from, I think, Madison Street or Jefferson Street.
Mm-hmm.
And became very challenging for them to at least get started that way, so they're gonna enter the property on Avenue 62. And then have a fire road over to Madison, I think, and then eventually it'll,
Are they gonna build some sort of, I guess, like a bridge over the
Something.
dike? Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways.
It's a pretty
Yeah.
steep, that's such a steep.
It's up there, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah. September 13th, All Valley Mayors Tribal Chairpersons Luncheon, Director Strong.
Yeah, that was one of the events that's put on by the Greater Coachella Chamber of Commerce. It's not the first year they do it, and they try to get all the mayors and the tribal chairpersons to give an update on their city or their tribe. All the mayors were there from the 9 cities, and that's always fun to go to. It's like it's almost like a state of the city, but for every mayor, kind of they go pretty quick on doing a quick introduction and giving updates on big projects at the city that they're from, and then at the end they go through a series of questions that might be important topics for the valley as a whole. Big one obviously was energy. IID was in the room, so JB Hamby was able to hear some of those comments, and so that there was conversations on that. There was conversations on housing, affordable housing. Your mayor was made some comments. He's very interested in providing money so that the affordable housing can get built somewhere else in the valley. So I'm not sure why he doesn't want to build any in Indian Wells.
They don't have a lot of land.
So that was his big statement. Says he's ready to give out checks. So
I think if you go back, back when the RDA was in place, you go back and the city of Indian Wells tried to make a deal with Coachella to put their.
I think so too.
And I think Coachella said no.
Yeah, I've heard something.
They were going to
about
give
it.
them their RDA money for the
Yeah, and they said
low
no.
income
I
housing.
remember.
They
Hey,
said
but,
no.
but you know what? It was actually well received. I think some of the other cities said, including Coachella and maybe Indio, said, yeah, we'd like to explore that option, but I think the entity that might be getting in the way of that penciling out might be the state, because if you have some RENA numbers that you need to meet and things like that. So, but at least there was interest, and I think it was presented more in the hey, let's kind of look at this holistically as a Coachella Valley versus kind of city by city. So that was good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there was that. There was, I mean, those were that's mainly it. The housing, affordable housing, housing in general, transportation, the big topics. So not so much about water. I think, which I think is a good thing. I think it just everybody assumes that everything's okay. So, anyways, that was a lot of people there. It was good to be there.
Yeah, good. I was curious to hear about that. September 18th, Disadvantaged Communities. I was on the line with that, on the Zoom or whatever, but I believe you were there, Vice President Strauss.
Yeah, I was there in person. We went over the projects. A lot of good progress is being made on Avenue 66. That seemed to be going well. Also with the IXTP, I think I heard that there's some vertical construction happening now. What else? I think we're getting ready with phase 2 of that transmission main. What do we call it? The Harrison phase 2, or what's that big one? It's in design. No, that's
Avenue
water.
86?
Avenue, yeah, Highway 86.
Or Highway 86.
We're not. That's in design, isn't it? I thought that was on there.
Come up to the, Highway 86 Phase 2 is complete. We're working on the planning for Highway 86 Phase 3 and 4.
Oh, okay.
And that's just in the, that's just a preliminary design report and
Okay.
environmental, so yeah.
Good.
But
Thank you.
all of Armando's projects that he presented today were talked about at the DAC.
Yeah, good, good,
Right.
thank you. Yeah, it's a, good meeting.
Yeah. September 20th, Healthy Desert, Healthy You. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a summit that was put on by the Desert Healthcare District. They had a number of speakers over 2 days. It was for Friday, last Friday and Saturday. They touched on a lot of subjects, including water, air quality, the Salton Sea, lithium. So they invited us to speak on, our panel was, I think the title was Ensuring Water for All. And the panel was made up of Dr. Sinclair, who has been, I think he's from Loma Linda University, and he's been involved out in the east side for many years, looking at issues that impact that region. And he presented on the topic of the Oasis Mobile Home Park, and so he kind of covered the timeline of when the mobile home park was starting to experience exceedances of the arsenic MCL and EPA coming in with the notices, and then how they've kind of come in and come out of having those notices. They mentioned our involvement in providing temporary water when we did that, and so he presented on that. It was pretty. He showed some images that went beyond just the water issue. There's like wastewater issues there, housing issues, and safety issues like that. So he presented on that, and then there was another gentleman who's studying for his doctorate degree. He presented on the Salton Sea, and he was tracking him along with Dr. Sinclair. Were tracking. What gas was it? You remember?
Hydrogen sulfide.
It might have been hydrogen sulfide,
Yeah.
but they have some monitors that they've placed, and so they are picking it up. So they presented on that, and then we presented on just our an update on our projects for water and sewer that we've come up with for consolidation purposes. And so it was a good meeting. Staff was there. We had a booth, and we showed up. So I think we were representing, and I think it went well. Thank you for the support and for being there. I think folks appreciate it.
Hey, just as a follow-up to that, I have the AQMD hydrogen sulfide monitoring the 3 stations, North Shore, Mecca, and Indio Amistad High School. And so it just comes on, and when it reaches the threshold of 30 parts per billion, where it's kind of human detectable, it gives me an alert. It's like, oh my goodness, it's you can detect it, and so 30 parts per billion is like the threshold, and this summer it was hitting 400, and they say it's not, it'll just cause discomfort. It won't.
Is the threshold when you can start smelling it?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy had a visual, and there was like a gust of wind. It was like an animation, and then there was like a rotten egg that flew across the Coachella. It flew across the Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
It was a rotten egg.
But it's pretty cool. You can monitor.
Good.
That is cool.
It was good. It was good that we were there.
Do we have any other meetings we need to report on?
I do not.
No.
Okay, is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, pass 3-0, with 2 absent. We're joined by our Assistant General Manager, Robert Chang, because Jim is trying to swim back from St. Thomas, and it's a long ways. So,
Thank you, President Powell. Just a few quick items. First of all, appreciate Director Nelson kind of highlighting the Fall X2 issue. So the state water contractors have been working very diligently with DWR to get that particular line moved. And I think, the good news, beyond just the water, is, I think the reliance on the science that we've all been funding, through our participation on state water contractors. So finally good to see, a little bit of the science that we're investing in, kind of pay off in life cycle models, et cetera. So,
That's great.
and we extend our appreciation to DWR for that, and hopefully, more of that, those kind of actions will come through the incidental take permit process, that's going to be finalized in the fall. I think the second issue, sorry to not participate more on the Prop 4 discussion, but it sounds like there was a robust discussion on that. I just want to have a point of clarification. I think there was obviously some frustration here expressed, I think myself included, that during an earlier iteration of this, the Prop 1 process, as we talked about, for surface storage, I just want to clarify that, if we're thinking about the same thing as the water supply and improvement. So I think it was actually $2.7 billion out of, the pot that was invested in it. And even though we didn't get direct money for that, as CVWD, we are the beneficiaries in the fact that we're participating in the SITES project, and SITES is getting like $860 million, in essentially, from that funding off the $4 billion project. So that is serving us well to kind of decrease the participation amounts. So I didn't want to interject.
No,
Sorry about that.
That's a fair point, but and it's going into the project.
Yes,
but,
sir.
The other amounts of money,
Where'd the other $9 billion
where'd
go?
the other billions go, right?
Yes,
And
sir, no.
So if not anywhere else, why not sites?
No.
For more, right?
No, it's a fair point. So anyways, I think we all have our own opinions about government efficiencies, so I'll just keep that to myself.
No, I appreciate that.
No, sir, just
point.
kind of, fact checking. I think the last item is, I think, the board probably remembered back in May, the revised cost estimate for the Delta Conveyance Project, the single tunnel now, came out in May, I think, around Aqua. And the actions are kind of heating up on that. I think Department of Water Resources is asking for all the participants to make funding decisions for 26 and 27 for for their part of the $300 million to kind of advance the pre-construction activities. And we've had a series of calls with the governor's office on this recently. So asking about schedules and so on. I've been kind of quietly working with Jim, our general manager, on the background of this. So I think the date that sort of made sense to us is the next meeting date in October 8th. So didn't want to surprise you when we have some reps, from the state show up at the meeting, and then I'll be making a request, to the board. So, just wanted to give you a heads up on what's coming. And that concludes my remarks, sir.
Thank you.
So just as a follow-up to that, Robert, so if we're 3.8% of the state water project, would that be about $300 million times 3.8? Is that kind of the neighborhood we're thinking, or are there other north of Delta or other agencies that may not participate that would increase that 3.8 up?
Great question, Director Nelson. And I think all that was sort of discussed, I know, quite a few years ago when the board, kind of gave that, around 3.8% participation. And I think our ask is to kind of remain at the 3.8% to get, the benefits from moving the project forward to a pre-construction stage. I think, the thinking is that hopefully, there's a few series of permitting activities as well as funding decisions that need to be made. There's validation action, that the state is undergoing right now. It's going to take a little bit of time to wind through its way through the courts. I think Jeff can probably correct me, but none of this is going to be fast. So the reason why the validation action is so important is it gives the DWR, Department of Water Resources, the clarity that they have the authority to build a project so they can go out and bond for it. So, we don't have to kind of carry it on a cash basis. So, yes, so the short answer to your question is yes, we're going to be at 3.8 of the 300 million, which is,
Okay, and then, just kind of to prepare us, is that come in on the statement of charges with the DWR's State Water Project bills?
yes, sir, it is. It will be billed as normal, like with any, with any other charges.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Council report?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about the last piece of the sites, and that's the pending water rights permit that's before the state board. The first part of that water rights permit application is it goes to an administrative hearing officer. The application was submitted in June of 2023. There were protests received. The administrative hearing officer has a hearing, at which point they come up with a statement of the facts and a recommendation on the water rights decision, and then it's forwarded to the state board. The state board actually makes the final decision. Those hearings started in August. They're continuing September 23rd, 24th, and 30th, as well as dates in October, and they have dates in January. So not a fast-moving item as well, but at least the water rights hearing is underway. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any departmental reports? No. Don't see any. So we are not doing the closed session today, so with no further
Hey, John, can I
business.
just say one more thing?
Yes,
Aboard-
for the record, go ahead.
All right, for the record, yeah. So I attended the probationary hearing for the Tule Subbasin up in Sacramento, and I would just like to commend the district for the well-thought-out groundwater management plan over the years that Coachella has, and the fact that we, invest in that and make it a priority, because it's, there's a lot of mess going on up north, so.
All these probationary, yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's,
So,
it is.
that's the only thing I have to say.
It's like we knew Sigma was coming and we
Right?
got ready for it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Anything else? With no further business, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.